I am Cheska, a Filipino domestic worker employed in Hong Kong. I am a caregiver, a mother, an employee, and a human being. Today I received a call from the loan firm. Hello?
You owe me 3,000 Hong Kong dollars lah. Pay me as soon as possible. When to pay me ah?
Each month, I have to pay at least that amount to loan shark because my agency back home forced me to undergo specific training that's said to be mandatory. But how can I repay that much when I have not even received that much for my salary this month? What is totally unacceptable is that the payment is illegal, but I have no way of proving my payments because the receipts from 7-Eleven fade out quickly. The other day, I was severely beaten by my employer just because I accidentally broke a plate. What's the point for me living in this misery when I'm underpaid and still being treated like this? Yet there's no way for me to leave since I have a family to support back home. It's not just me who's suffering. One of my friends whose employer cruelly kicked her out, she has to leave Hong Kong tomorrow in 2 weeks. Goodbye, friend. She did not even do anything wrong. She even worked 7 days a week, 20 hours a day.
Do you know, foreign domestic helpers make up 3% of the population in Hong Kong. After multiplying by the huge population base, more than 329,035 helpers are now serving more than 320,000 families in Hong Kong 2014. Among the current domestic helpers, 50% were from the Philippines and 47% from Indonesia. As for gender proportion, female accounted for more than 99%. Those more vulnerable females instead heroically take the daunting task of supporting the whole family back in their home country. However, inconsistent with their contribution, domestic workers are at risk of serious human and labor rights violations in Hong Kong. Hong Kong Human Rights Monitor reports that out of 2,500 interviewed, at least 25% had claimed to have experienced violations of their contract. More than 25% had experienced physical and verbal abuse, including a significant incidence of sexual abuses. They're turned into victims of modern-day slavery and became Hong Kong's hidden shame around the world. There are 3 types of parties revolving around all domestic workers. The agencies, which include recruitment, placement, and loan agencies, employers, and the Hong Kong government. It is due to the actions and even inactions of these 3 parties that the foreign domestic helpers living in Hong Kong continue to feel helpless and endure mistreatment, unfairness, and discrimination. Next, let's look at each of these parties in detail to identify the problems incurred. As mentioned before, agencies consist of 3 types. So first, let's introduce the 3 types of agencies. Recruitment agencies are located in the home countries of the domestic workers, and their task is to find new recruits. While placement agencies are usually located in Hong Kong, and they act as a medium to assign these workers to their employers. The agencies charge excess recruitment fees and commissions, which are illegal, and found ways to evade the law by imposing training fees and other expenses before the domestic workers leave their countries. Knowing that these workers are incapable of paying such extravagant fees, the agencies persuade helpers to obtain a loan via loan agencies. The loans have to be repaid monthly once the helpers start to work, leaving them with an insufficient amount of money for their daily needs. Another problem faced by the helpers is contract deception, where the number of working hours and even the amount of wages paid is different to what is stated in their contracts. Recruitment, placement, and loan agencies collude together in the aims of making profits at the expense of these vulnerable domestic workers. Next, let's go over the issues concerning the Hong Kong government. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority has no regulatory control over money lenders, making it impossible for the government to track any excessive illegal fees. So there is no evidence of proof to prosecute the agencies of breaking the law. The Hong Kong law has no limit on the maximum number of working hours for helpers, which means that they may have to work excess hours. This is inconsistent with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Now, let's move on to see how the employers aggravate the issue faced by the workers. The employers make the helpers work for excess hours, deny them rest days, pay them below the minimum allowable wages, abuse them, and even fire them with no prior notice. Yet, the workers cannot complain to authorities, as lodging a complaint against their employers would mean that they would lose their jobs. In addition, the 2-week rule implemented by the Hong Kong immigration allows the helpers a period of only 14 days to find a new job if terminated from the existing one. This time period is inadequate, as it takes longer to find a new workplace, which eventually means that the helper gets trapped in a vicious cycle where they have to apply to agencies again and borrow more loans to find a new job. This is a major problem that has made the helpers vulnerable to agencies and their employers. The government needs to do something. So why would they care about minorities in Hong Kong? For one, racial segregation perpetuates the mentality of racial hierarchy. Ignorance only breeds ignorance. Such negative perception would only foster a detrimental learning environment for our future generations. Domestic helpers are caregivers who should receive the same rights as any employee in the world. They are contributing to the betterment of our lives. So should we not reciprocate their efforts? Our goal is to educate the younger generation into acknowledging the rights of foreign domestic helpers and to persuade the government to take action in meeting ILO's standards of equality. So how do we persuade the government to acknowledge minority rights? We are in need of a bottom-up approach, which was historically proven to work in the establishment of the ICAC. If we can shed a light on how much of a member of your family your helper is, then you will be more willing to get involved. Yes, you. Who cooks your meals, makes your beds, or is quietly tending to your everyday need? Yes, your helper. We need to care enough in order for the government to take their issues seriously. If sufficient awareness is spread, then the people would conduct surveys to investigate the issue and present to our government the truth about domestic helper mistreatment. What can the government do? And most importantly, what can you do? Firstly, we should look into what the government can do. A low-cost way of educating domestic helpers of their rights is to distribute educational booklets written in domestic helpers' respective languages in their home countries. The government should encourage NGOs in Hong Kong and NGOs in the Philippines and Indonesia to form partnerships for knowledge transfer on corrupted agencies and hold seminars to educate domestic workers. A bigger step is to create an online platform for domestic helpers to file anonymous complaints against recruitment agencies and placement agencies. Domestic workers should receive a unique code upon arrival. With that code, domestic workers are able to file anonymous complaints stating the nature of the complaint as well as the severeness level. If there are, say, 300 complaints filed against one agency in Hong Kong, then a fine as large as 100,000 Hong Kong dollars will be imposed on said agency. If the number of complaints increases by 50 within the subsequent year, then the fine would increase to 200,000 Hong Kong dollars. Another 50 complaints, the responsible agency will be eliminated from the market, with the government confiscating their assets. The online platform should disclose the number of complaints and the nature of complaints against corrupted recruitment agencies in domestic helpers' respective countries, so as to empower domestic workers. As with the increase of revenue stream with the issuance of fines, the government can substantiate a regulatory organization to track all payments, including each worker's salary, paid by their employers, as well as the legal agency fees by setting up a bank account for each and every domestic worker. Let's move on to what we can do. We need to realize that this is a multi-step process and that we play an important role in this. We are able to bridge the status of inequality of the employer-domestic worker relationship. We need to spread awareness and show respect for our caregivers. We have set up a Facebook page called Help Our Helpers, and we created an event called Caregiver Day. We urge each and every one of you to participate. All you have to do is post a photo of you and your helper, write about your time together, or anything you know about your helper. When stories are told, we're instantly more connected to our helpers and we will care more for their rights.